Welcome to the Sober Side, Sasha.
Thank you.
We were chatting just a bit, but I want to let you do your own introduction. Tell us how old you are, where you're from, how much time clean you have, and what was your drug of choice.
My name is Sasha. I'm 46 years old. I was born in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I have 2 years and 1 month of clean time. Drug of choice is alcohol and meth, and whatever else was in front of me.
Congratulations on your sobriety. So Las Vegas.
Vegas.
Can you remind me of what childhood was like in Las Vegas? Because all of us know Vegas as, just the strip, all the gambling, the lights, the glamour. But what was it like growing up there?
Okay. Growing up in Vegas, for me, it just seemed like a normal thing. We'd go into the grocery store and we see slot machines. Not a big deal. You know what I mean? Yeah, okay, they're there. We go shopping, go home. I was a normal kid for the most part. Going outside, playing in the pool, hanging out with my younger sister, and not really aware of what the image that Vegas has, or the image that people come to Vegas, party, and leave. That was out of sight, out of mind. I grew up playing sports.
Nice. What kind of sports did you play?
I played softball, basketball, skateboarding. I was an outdoors kid.
Nice.
Playing on the swings, pretending at one point we were tennis stars, Andre Agassi, because he lived in Vegas. Just a playful person, just a playful kid, and when asking me about Vegas and seeing the lights and all that stuff, it didn't affect me. I really didn't know about the party life. Would
you guys go out to like the strip for like restaurants to hang out, stuff like that?
Yeah, on growing up, we would go to Circus. They'd have the buffet, and then they have that circus, the circus in the
Circus used to be popping back in the day.
Very popping, and the buffet was really, really good. And
I like the Vegas buffets.
Yeah, and Vegas wasn't what it is now. I was born in 1978, so it was a lot smaller. I can remember when the Excalibur was built. I can remember when the MGM was built, because that's how old I am now.
Shout out to Kirk.
Right. And I did go to high school with Kurt Busch, the NASCAR racer, and Kyle Busch. And, growing up in Vegas,
it was a good childhood.
It was a good childhood. I really enjoyed Vegas. A lot of people say, "Oh, there's nothing to do in Vegas," but for me as a kid, it seemed like there was a lot to do. We'd roller skate outside. I can remember my stepmom enrolling us at Brinkley Junior High, where we take swimming lessons. Did and try to learn magic, and just really not a part of what society and what everybody sees as Vegas as. Going to the parks, skateboarding, having Halloweens, just all the
I can imagine.
Yeah, just all the like normal things that go on in other states. We have that too, not just casinos and even though Halloween is a big deal in Vegas, and I experienced that as an adult, but as a kid, it was very playful.
Yeah, there's people still out there who haven't taken their costumes off, right?
No.
So what was the family life like? How was the dynamic within the family?
The family life. So I have to rewind a little bit, because living in Vegas, there's also another side of the story besides Vegas. Being born and raised in Vegas, my mom and dad eventually got divorced at a certain time in my life, I would say about 6 years old maybe, where my mom moved to California to live with my mom's side of the family. So being that my mom was in Orange County, my dad in Las Vegas, I would go to school in Orange County, and then during the summertime, I'd go visit my dad in Vegas. So the going back and forth left me with my friends in Orange County during the school year, and my summertime trying to figure out my friends for the summertime. Within the Vegas and Orange County, there was still movement between both my dad and my mom. So I went to a lot of different schools, just trying to find a place. Even in the school system, I was just an awkward, oddball kid, just not feeling a part of the school, but feeling a part of the family. I am the oldest child, and my sister being younger, there was this thing of your sister's watching you, you're the oldest, set a good example and all that good stuff. And I feel like I did my best. I could have done better as an older sister. And, going from one place to another, I was able to find some areas where I could kind of play the part of both parents, and not realizing like what I was doing or how this was going to affect me later on in life when I started using drugs and alcohol. Today, with the 2 years of sobriety that I have, and doing the work and working on myself with a therapist and my sponsor, and actually going to meetings, I now see those things of the moving back and forth and seeing my part as far as understanding that my addiction actually started before I even started using. The manipulation, the lying, trying to get away with things, making things bigger than what it needs to be, or minimizing things that should be bigger. But growing up in Vegas, I can't say during childhood that it was bad. Not today. Not after doing step work and all that good stuff.
So did you see any kind of drug use or alcohol use within the family?
Yeah, my dad was an alcoholic. My dad, but I didn't recognize it because during the summertime, it was all play, like let's go swimming. So it was just a normal thing. I can remember one time going to the pool with my dad. We spent a lot of time at the pool being in Vegas. And I can remember me getting out of the pool and him having his Budweiser, him having his Budweiser, and me wanting a drink from it.
At what age was this, roughly?
I'd say probably around 8 years old that this happened. But at that moment that he said no, and I'm like, oh, just kind of like, let me just try it, I can remember the taste of it today, and not beating myself up like I should have known at 8 years old where this was going to take me later on in life. But just remembering how refreshing it was. And I wouldn't have known that unless I really dug deep into what happened. What happened when I started using drugs and alcohol. And when I got into it, that memory came up for me.
Interesting. So what was your first experience with... So that was your first experience with alcohol. What was your first experience taking it to the next level?
My first experience was graduation night. I graduated in 1996, and that was the first night that I drank heavily. And it wasn't one or two. It was to the point of like almost blackout. I can remember things of that night. There was a lot of parties going on. I was part of I went to Catholic catechism school during my high school years, and we partied in the Rio. Then we'd go to another hotel and party, and that night is where things changed for me. I started feeling like a part of something. I felt, oh man, this is where it's at, you know? But what an experience to see people who I went to catechism with and partying with them in hotels room, in the hotel rooms, was different, because I would see them in Catholic school.
Yeah, and this was a private school, I'm guessing?
No, I went to Durango High School.
Okay.
I was the second graduating class in 1996. It was a brand new high school. And, you know, I did very well in high school. Like, very well. So well that, you know, I played music. I was offered music scholarships for the viola.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Viola.
For the viola.
Wow.
I started out playing the cello, and then switched over to the viola, played in the orchestra.
Wow.
Offered scholarships to Gonzaga University, Sam Houston State University. During high school, I also played varsity softball. I played basketball. I had a really, really strong outlook and a really good future ahead of me.
Okay. So did you end up going to college?
I went to UNLV. I did not take the scholarships.
And why was that?
I didn't take them because I started making justifications. And I didn't realize that until you just asked me. Justifications of, oh, I'm going to have to take too many classes if I go. There are music appreciation classes, 1 credit. Feeling of like, well, what am I going to do if I do graduate with a music degree? What am I going to do after that? Just seeing a dead road.
So what is the path that you chose with college?
Well, I went to UNLV, and I was doing really good. I started off getting straight A's, and then there was an opportunity to join a sorority.
Interesting. What was your major?
Athletic training. I wanted to be a physical therapist.
Okay. And what was that process of joining a sorority like?
There was the rush, you know, and drinking wasn't involved at that time. It was the primary focus of girls getting together to know each other, to be in a sorority, to be what I saw as being popular on campus, which was not what I was in high school. And, you know, to go back to feeling the way that I did in high school and graduating with that one night of binge drinking, I didn't want to feel the same way that I did in high school as I did in college. So why not join a sorority? Why not be a part of the popular kids? You know, I was talking to some friends today, how in high school I can remember one day carrying my cello. I'd walk home with a backpack full of honor class books, you know, anatomy, physiology, U.S. government. And in the desert, I could see these kids smoking, wearing their Nirvana t-shirts, Pearl Jam t-shirts, and I'm carrying this heavy load of books, like weighing me down, and a cello, and I'm like, I want to be like that. That looks like a heck of a lot better than what I got going on right here.
Yeah.
And that night of graduation, it felt like a release of all of that, just gone. A release of like, man, here, this is what it's about. This is what it's like to be that kid wearing that Nirvana shirt, that Pearl Jam shirt, smoking a cigarette with no care in the world.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted.
So that's kind of what you got with joining the sorority.
Yeah, and they didn't promote the drinking. I promoted it myself, looking back on it. I met some girls in there, some really good girls, and joining the sorority and putting my alcoholism first wound up pushing my backpack, that heavy backpack, further away. And that became my studies. How do I drink? You know, flaming Dr. Peppers, and drinking more and more. And across the street from UNLV on Maryland Parkway, there was a place called Tom and Jerry's where a lot of us would go and do Wednesday ladies night.
It's like a bar.
And, it's like a bar, and spent a lot of time at Tom and Jerry's. I lived on Maryland Parkway at one point in an apartment, and being in the sorority and having a fraternity brother, he wound up getting a house because they didn't have fraternity houses at UNLV. So they wound up renting a house, and he said I could live in it. And at this point, I'm not going to school. I'm doing dead-end jobs, just trying to scrape up money for rent. And he gets this house and says, dude, I'll take care of it. All right. And I get my own room. Absolutely. So I get my own room. They're all going to college. One's going for business school. The other's going to be a nurse. And yet here I am putting alcohol still in front of me and telling myself, okay, I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to go back to school.
But at this point, the drinking has become a problem, you would say.
Yeah, it's become a problem, but I don't see it as a problem.
Was it an everyday drinking thing?
It became an everyday drinking thing. And there was always something going on. I'm in Vegas. You know, hey, let's go down to the Strip and go get the yard at the MGM Grand, you know, or let's go here or here or here. That was my priority. And even though I saw them going to school, I wanted nothing to do with it. I didn't want to carry that heavy backpack anymore. I didn't want to go back to where my studies left me in my room by myself with my viola. I wanted to be a part of something where I felt comfort, even though I was still uncomfortable. I was still very uncomfortable, but I couldn't do it. I can remember going to philosophy, and for whatever reason, I can still remember this equation. If A equals B and B equals A, then A's got to equal B. And that's like the only thing I can remember it from philosophy.
I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, and I'm like, why is this stuck in my head? But it's just like the one thing that's stuck in my head in philosophy. And I look at that equation, and it's just like, well, if one drink equals one drink, then another drink is going to equal more drinks, you know? And going through that whole process of feeling like I could go back to school, but that's going to get in my way of what I'm doing right now, it was a battle.
Interesting. And where do the drugs enter the scene?
Drugs start entering the scene when Ecstasy became a big thing in Vegas. And I want to say around 98, 99. And that's when Vegas for me really became the Vegas that everybody knows. The Vegas that everybody knows.
So what was your first experience taking ecstasy?
It was great. I can't describe the happiness that I felt. I felt like I was floating. Alcohol did that for me, but ecstasy really did it for me. We would go to Club Utopia Saturday night. We when CK1 in the Venetian. I want to say it's Club Rain in the Mandalay Bay. Like we were all over. I never left Vegas. People would come and people go back home, but for me, that party never ended until one day it had to end.
So a lot of people think that ecstasy isn't something that you get addicted to. So walk us through your experience with that.
For me, it was something that I did get addicted to. It now was something that told me that this is better than the alcohol I was drinking. This has given me something that makes me feel even better. This is something that is giving me even more friends. I was addicted to the club life now. And the club life included ecstasy. And we called it Terrible Tuesday because, that was the only day that we ever took a break from the whole partying scene. And it was Terrible Tuesday because that high that I had of just complete euphoria and complete happiness was now that bottom that I felt when the bottom that I kind of felt when I was in high school and not feeling like good enough. And I didn't want to feel like that. Absolutely did not want to feel like that.
So were you doing ecstasy every day?
Yeah. We were doing, I don't want to say we, but I was doing it every day. And it wasn't just one pill. One pill wasn't enough. 2 pills, 3 pills. I can remember having like 6 or 8 pills. And
so this is something that you build tolerance to over time.
Yeah, I built tolerance to it, and I can remember being in Club Utopia and having that first line of cocaine. I remember it like it was yesterday, and that completely ruined my ecstasy happiness because the cocaine for me mixed in with the ecstasy made me angry.
Oh.
It like I went from happy to complete. I want to destroy everybody who's around me. That the light stick. Like, I mean, we did the whole thing. The light sticks, the dressing up part, the whole rave. Listen to only club music, and I was in it. Now my alcohol friends. I couldn't hang out with my alcohol friends anymore because now I found this new drug. So now I'm with my ecstasy friends. So the alcohol friends were no longer useful to me, and we would, I can remember taking hundreds of pills in me into babies, and in the Hard Rock Cafe. And in the bra, you could take out the pads and just filled with them. And I didn't want to like give them up, even though I knew it was, $25 a pill. But I was like, wait, those are mine, and what if I run out and all that stuff? What am I going to do for the next day? And I'm like, dude, there's 100 pills. What do 100 of them? And just that feeling like I couldn't get enough.
So at what point did you realize that taking ecstasy became a problem?
Well, I never found it a problem because I would just move on to something else.
So the drinking stopped and it was purely ecstasy?
Yeah, it was purely ecstasy, and then I found meth. And, my disease likes to tell me, oh, I'm not an addict because I switched from this to that or that to this. So you're not addicted to any of that stuff. After ecstasy, it was meth, and that gave me a different high, put me on a different level. So, and with meth,
where was the first time, or where was the first place and time that you experienced meth?
It was with one of my friends, who I had met while working at Marie Callender's, and the first time I tried it, we actually smoked pot first, and marijuana is not my thing, because it's not an upper. It makes me feel like I'm sinking into the couch. I feel like I don't know, like I hear things, which is the weirdest thing. Like I hear things that I don't want to hear, but we tried meth, and I was like, oh, this is it. Look at all the energy I have. I thought I had the energy with the ecstasy, but I was only stationed to one area of like dancing in one other area. But with meth, it was, look at me run around. Look at me feeling like Superwoman. I could do anything, and even talking about it, I feel that smile on my face, which I don't always like, because meth is what really destroyed my life. So for me, when smiling about it, it's like my disease is like, hey, I'm getting you back here. So I try to be really mindful of like, when I talk about alcohol, the mouth salvation, or the meth, like, oh, the running around, the superhuman power, I can run as, the distance that I run today, or whatever it is. So, today I try to watch for that stuff,
It's interesting how mindful you are of how your brain associates those things.
Yeah.
So the ecstasy kind of leaves the scene, and then meth enters.
Yeah.
And so does alcohol come back in, or is it just meth now?
Every now and then it would come back in, because sometimes I'd be too twacked out. And so I needed something to like bring me back down. And it's like, okay, let me have a drink. Let me have a beer or a margarita. So, not like how it was when I was, first started out, and so it would pop back in and out every now and then, but it was always there. And other drugs would always be there. If it wasn't meth, then it was ecstasy. If it wasn't ecstasy, then yeah, I didn't like pot, but it's there, so why not?
Why not?
Yeah. Yeah. Until until I was about to lose everything. I stopped going to work. My story in Vegas, I got into the entertainment industry. I worked at Cheetahs. I worked at the library as a dancer, and meth, and now again alcohol is back in. So now the meth is it's slowly going away, and the alcohol is back in my life. And now that became my priority again.
So how prominent was drug use within that entertainment scene?
I was in it, so I didn't really, it just became something normal to me. It was just a normal thing to see girls take a line and then go out on the floor, or take a drink and a line, or whatever else was going on. So I was just a part of it. I was a part of it. Whether I saw what other girls were doing, I knew that what I was doing was just trying to be a part of something, and it's a part of my story that still brings a lot of guilt and shame, because I compare it to my dreams, of being a physical trainer, an athletic trainer, and going to Catholic school, or catechism, and not Catholic school, going through catechism, and now here I am, dancing and drinking and, taking my clothes off, and going against all my morals and my beliefs. And that's really where I hit like a bottom and a depression that alcohol, that's where alcohol started turning on me. It started not to be this fun party anymore. It started to be where it wasn't making me happy anymore. Either was the meth or whatever other drug was in front of me. And it really brought me to a bottom where, thoughts of suicide were starting to pop in my head. I wasn't around my family, when I really got into drinking at UNLV, I left my family a note saying pretty much like, fuck you. I found something better. And the only thing I found better was drugs and alcohol. And I was a chameleon. I was one person with my alcoholic friends, a different person with my meth friends, different person with my ecstasy friends, like just all over, different person when I was dancing,
But who were you when you were alone?
Oh, who was I when I was, that's a very good question. That's a really good question. And when you say that, I was scared. I didn't know who I was when I was alone. When you say that, I just see myself like sitting in a corner like this, tucked in and just crying, and then walking out that door pretending everything's okay. And, wanting to do something differently, but not knowing how, and not knowing where, or, not dealing with a lot of things such as trauma, and, not being around my family. Really took a toll on me, and so did that guilt and shame. How can I knock on the door after I leave a note pretty much saying, fuck you, I found something better, to the people who helped me, you know?
So how long does this last, and where was your rock bottom?
My rock bottom was when I was gonna lose my apartment in Vegas. My mom had passed away when I was 10 years old.
Sorry for your loss.
Thank you. And I wasn't a part of my sister's life. I have a stepmom and a stepbrother who I feel like I was always in a competition with. And my dad who's an alcoholic. And my rock bottom really hit in that moment of sitting in the corner of me crying and thinking of my grandma who lives in Orange County. And at that time, remembering my mom and how I found out that my mom passed away, of my grandma sitting on the couch with her hands in her face and telling me at 10 years old that your mommy went to heaven, and where I was in my life, and putting everything together in that moment, in that corner of, I just want to get out of Vegas. I just want to get out of here. I need to be with my grandma or with somebody who loves me, because at that time I couldn't show my face with my dad and my stepmom, and that's a whole another story. And I just wanted to be with my grandma who you know, was always comforting to me.
So what steps did you make towards change?
I picked up the phone and called my stepmom. And this would have been in February of 2001. Before that, I got out of the dancing scene and really wanted to change things around. I received a position as a hostess at the Aladdin, and this was before 9/11 happened.
Mm-hmm.
I was in Vegas when 9/11 occurred. So I'm like, okay, things are looking up. Things are going to happen. Okay, I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to do drugs. I'm over the ecstasy. So ecstasy wasn't in my life then. Meth's not in my life. I'm no longer a dancer. I drink every now and then, but now I have an opportunity to work at the Aladdin. When 9/11 happened and seeing the strip just be closed and just empty, and no one no one knew what was going to happen or what was going on during that time, but there were a lot of tourists coming in, and to get the call from the Aladdin a few weeks later saying, look, we're sorry, you no longer have this position, brought me back to, okay, what do I do now? I really want to change my life. And, time went on, and still had the apartment, went back to dancing, miserable. Now the drinking's getting heavier. I can remember the moment that I stopped doing meth, I stopped doing ecstasy, was the day that a psychosis happened, and I'm hiding in the closet, and my door is shut, but I think there's an FBI agent in my room, and I'm running around my room so the FBI agent doesn't find me. And that was the last time I ever touched meth. And after not touching meth anymore, I went back to alcohol. And alcohol, always comforted me, so I thought. Always made things a little bit better, so I thought. And I started getting back into drinking again, because my disease likes to tell me, oh, well, you're not doing ecstasy anymore, so that wasn't your problem. That's not your problem. Look, you quit, you can do without alcohol, but not really seeing that drugs and alcohol are my problem. My disease likes to play such mind games with me. And it was in February, not being able to get work, not being able to find work, not being able to continue doing what I was doing. My bills are being paid late. I just don't want to be in that industry, and the thoughts of like, man, I my friends are graduating from college soon, and here I am, stuck in this misery. How do they do it? How did they drink and still finish college? And here I am, not able to do any of that. And it was the first week of February where I made that phone call, and that phone was heavy. And I called my stepmom, and she said, the only way that we're going to do this is you got to meet me at Palace Station. And at that time I was living in the Sunrise Mountain. And so I met her at Palace Station with my head held down, she's like, yeah, we're going to get you a ticket to fly out to Orange County. You're going to leave everything that you have in that apartment there if you really want to do this. And there were things in that apartment, like I didn't care at that time. Whatever, the clothes, all that stuff, but my mom's cross was in that apartment. The cross that I received from the funeral was in that apartment, and her not allowing me to go back there to get that really put even more resentment towards the relationship I already had with her. But I had to make that decision. What do I want? This is an opportunity for me to get the hell out of here. I don't have any money. I'm gonna lose my apartment anyways, so maybe someday I'll be able to get another cross. So kicking and screaming, I did just that, and moved to Orange County, where my aunt picked me up from the airport, and I lived with my grandma. And I lived in my grandma's house, and I hadn't lived in my grandma's house, or really be in that house since the day that I found out that my mom passed away. And I was able to quit smoking the day I got off the plane. I didn't want my grandma to see me smoking, but the alcohol was still there. I still took that. The alcohol was still there, and it was one of the first things that I did when I got to California. My cousin was like super stoked because I didn't talk to the family. I was MIA during my active using in Vegas, and now I'm here with them, not really knowing how bad my alcoholism and addiction was. And him and I went out, and that adios motherfucker really adiosed me. And I don't even remember how we got home. I don't remember remember a thing. But there was something comforting knowing that was back in my grandma's house. So I didn't see the issue. So all I did was carry all of my problems from Vegas back to Orange County with me, still not seeing the problem. And, being back in California, the drinking and being stuck in the corner from when I was in Vegas followed me to that bedroom where I found out that my mom had passed away. I can remember a night where the clock was just ticking, and it was like the loudest clock in the world, and it was just like click, 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 to the point of like almost insanity. And I went in and got a bottle of Jack. My grandma had Darvocet at that time, and I took all the Darvocet, took a bottle of Tylenol, drank it all, like on a suicide mission. And I can remember being at the hospital and them, pumping me with charcoal. And at that time, at that moment, I had to get sober. I had to get sober, and I didn't have a choice. Now I'm in an institution, St. Joseph's Behavioral Health Center in Orange County. Woke up there not even knowing what happened, with taste of charcoal still in my mouth, and I told myself, I can't do this to my grandma, and so I got sober. I got sober for 2 years in Orange County while living at my grandma's house, and
completely on your own without going to like treatment center or anything that.
Yeah, not going to a treatment center. They, behavioral health services hooked me up with the Women's Center, Mariposa in Orange County. And they said, maybe go to meetings or whatever. And I can remember my dad, my senior year, going to AA. I went to Al-Anon. My stepmom was like, go to Al-Anon, but I didn't, I went, but I wasn't I didn't know what was going on, you know. And for 1 year, you know, my dad was sober my whole senior year, and he was there for all of the things I had going on my senior year, and you know, they're telling me, you know, go to meetings, and I you know, this was in 2003. So I had gotten sober for 2 years. I went to a couple meetings. I'm young. I'm 24 years old, and these guys who are older are like, oh, if you go back out there, it only gets worse. And I'm like, how worse could it be? You know? And everything is going great. You know, I'm living at my grandma's. You know, I have a job at Target. I'm away from Vegas. I'm away from all of that scene. You know, I'm not drinking anymore. I didn't have anything, but you know, I get a job at Target, you know, and I'm finding ways to heal from the trauma of my mom passing away. And you know, I did that by going to the church of where the funeral was. And some may call this sick, but for me, it really did help me. And I'd go and sit in the back and just watch funerals to try to relive what a funeral is as an adult rather than as a 10-year-old. Because at 10, I really didn't understand. I didn't understand what was going on. So now I'm in my 20s, and I'm going to the church, and it did help. It did help. It allowed me to see what really happened. It allowed me to mourn. You know, I felt like I was able to grieve properly, and with the help of the Mariposa Women's Center and some of the meetings, you know, allowed me to have sobriety. And there's one, and my spirituality, you know, started taking off. I started having a connection with my higher power, and not reading the book, not doing step work, but just leaning more towards my spirituality. And you know, there was a day when I left Target, and I'm riding my bike, and there's a school, Newbridge College in Santa Ana, that I happened to stop by. I'm like, there's got to be more than me just working at Target. I didn't get sober to work at Target and ride a bicycle. There's got to be more to life. And so I go to this college. It's on a Friday, and they're like, yeah, we're starting medical assistant classes on Monday. And I'm like, well, what is that? And they're like, well, the medical field. And I'm like, okay, all right, well, how do I sign up? So I sign up. I start taking classes to become a medical assistant. Had no idea that that's what I would get into, from where I just left to, and what I just did to, okay, I'll do medical assistant. And I finished school, you know, sober. And then other things started happening in my sobriety after medical assisting. I didn't have a car, and I finished school, and I asked my grandma, you know, hey, can I borrow your truck? You know, I want to go see about some interviews, and I'm gaining the trust back again of family, because I'm being a part of family. So she lets me borrow her truck, and I'm going to the cardiology department. They want to offer me like $9, and something told me, hey, there's got to be something more than this. So, you know, I go into another huge HMO. I don't know if I want to at this time say what the HMO is.
You don't have to.
Another you know, HMO where I walk in, and I get an interview, and they're like, hey, well, can you go for a job in Mission Viejo? And I'm like, okay, what do I do now? Leaning on my spirituality, leaning on my sobriety. Yeah, I'll go to the interview. Not really feeling like I would get the job. And it's in Mission Viejo, which is quite a ways from Santa Ana and Mission Viejo. I'm like, well, what am I going to do when I don't have this? If I were to get this job, how am I supposed to get there?
Right.
You know, so I wind up going there. I do the interview, and they offer me the job. And I'm like, okay, cool. All right. So how am I going to get there? You know, how am I supposed to get there? So, I call my grandma again. I'm like,
Uber wasn't a thing back then?
Uber was not a thing back then.
Oh, man.
Not at all. And so, I call my grandma. I'm like, hey, God shot, let me go see if this place will give me a car. And it's, the Honda Weir Canyon Center. So I go there. I show them the paper that I got this job opportunity, and they're like, okay, yeah, we can do something for you. So then I wind up getting a car. I'm like, okay, this like spirituality thing's really working out for me today. I get this job at a huge HMO. Now I got this car, and off I go, So I start this job and still sober, and things are looking good. Still living with grandma, and then I get into a relationship, and I get into a relationship soberly. And, the relationship that I get into, I'm not drinking. And,
But he is?
She is drinking, and she also has a son. And, we decided that we would only drink on a Friday. And I should have known that was not going to work out, given what I just saw in Vegas.
Right.
And so we lived together in Huntington Beach. And looking back on that 13-year relationship, I'm still working on things with my therapist regarding sexuality that are, difficult to talk about, because of traumas and stuff like that. And my fiance today is a male, and who I'm very happy with. And
shout out fiance.
That's
right.
And 13 more years of drinking, and
every day.
It didn't start out
every day, right?
Yeah, it didn't start out like that. That Friday turned into a Saturday. That Saturday turned into a Sunday, and slowly things started getting worse and worse. And I'm like, I just, in that relationship, just really wanting to go back home, but not wanting to go back home at the same time.
Right.
Being in a relationship that I had, no business like really being in, but I did the best that I could. I went back to school, and wound up getting my nursing license, as an LVN, and working as a nurse in a big HMO as an alcoholic with a better than attitude, better than this, better than that, better than you, better than, I really had that better than attitude down. The don't you know who I am, I'm wearing scrubs attitude, and I really hid behind that badge. And I look back and my integrity of being a nurse by day and an alcoholic by night, really took its toll. And I wind up getting separated in 2019, and I meet my fiance, and everything's great, until meth comes back into my life. So now I'm back into the meth scene.
How did the meth just appear?
Well, he's he lived in El Centro. I lived in Orange County, and there was a lot of lying, a lot of lying to my family. After the separation, I moved back in with my aunt, and still trying to drink and still trying to, be independent while living at my aunt's house. And, my drinking got worse. And drinking in the closet, drinking in my room, drinking after work. But I wasn't an alcoholic because I wasn't waking up and drinking. That,
you were sober during work.
Yeah, sober during work, going to the gym. All these things allowed me to not see my alcoholism, and, so I meet him, and, he's a heroin addict, and, brings meth. I'm lying to my family about him, and July 24th of 2019, quit my job and moved to El Centro. And I really didn't have a choice because they found out. They found out that I'm bringing meth in. And, I'm still working through all of this portion of my life in recovery. And I think that's why I'm like sweating, because
it's also really hot in here.
I'm like, whew. That's when things like really turned, 15 years in a career as a nurse, and just abandoning it, and how I left, I left not because of him. I didn't leave because of the family. I left because I was addicted to the meth and to the alcohol. That nothing was going to get in the way of my using and drinking. So, I didn't have a choice. My family found out about it. So I moved to El Centro, no career, and wind up going down so low to where now I'm homeless. Homeless on the streets because, I can't get my shit together. I can remember being in Vegas and sleeping, on a bench at New York, because my shit just would not come together. And now here I am at, in 2021, doing that same thing.
In the same town?
In El Centro.
Oh, in El Centro, okay.
El Centro, which is, I can say the same town because it's 120 degrees out there, as it is in Vegas. For whatever reason, my addiction likes to take me into the desert of hell. It takes me into that hell area, and now I'm homeless on the street. How did this happen? How did I go from living in Huntington Beach, working as a nurse, to sleeping on the sidewalk? How did this happen? Where did I go wrong? And I'm looking at the people around me, and I'm looking at things around me, and the only thing I didn't want to look at was myself. That's the last person who I'm going to look at. Yeah. I'm going to turn and then blame it on you. I'm going to blame it on this and that and whatever else around me. I'm going to blame it on my fiance. I'm going to blame it on my ex. I'm going to blame it on my work. I'm going to blame it on my family. But I'm not going to take any accountability. None of this is my fault. If my mom wouldn't have died, if my grandma would have hugged me more, or if my dad would have been there for more than just a year, and didn't die in 2009, then things would have been better. But I don't think it would have been. I think it would have been on the same road. So
how do you go from sleeping on the sidewalk to this couch?
A lot of hard work.
What's the first thing that you did to get out of that scene?
To get out of that scene, well, it took the 10th arrest to get out of that scene, which would have been, July 15th of 2023 is when I was done. I was absolutely done. My fiance is walking on one side of the sidewalk, and I'd just given up 10 months of sobriety in Indio in hopes that we would get sober together. And I go back to El Centro, and that doesn't happen. And July 15th of 2023, he's walking down one way, I'm walking up one way, and I'm just please let me keep walking. I walk up to the Panda Express, eat out of the trash can for the last time, and they're telling me to get out of here, and I'm like, I'm not leaving. I'm done, and knowingly that I'm looking at a 5-year prison term because I have 2 felonies, and I didn't care anymore. I was done. I was tired. I was tired of feeling the way that I felt. And the 3 officers, came, and because of all the other arrests, they knew who I was. Like, Sasha, what's going on? And I'm just like, dude, I'm done. I'm done, And at that point, I was grateful that they were arresting me. Thank God, And it didn't look like that the other 9 times, but this time I was just like, thank God. I know I'm gonna get a shower. I'm gonna be somewhere safe. I don't have to be on the streets. With all this anger that I just gave up. Because I had gone to a treatment center before that last arrest, and I had that 10 months. I don't have to do this shit anymore. I don't have to do this running around. I'm ready to face, all the things that I need to face. Like, whatever you need me to do, I'm going to do. And August 30th, 2 years ago, tomorrow, I wind up in Santa Monica. And being homeless in El Centro, I would see the sign 277 miles to Los Angeles. And I'd try to walk it. Wow. I'd be so out there in psychosis. I'm like, I just want to get the fuck out of this city. Pardon my language. I just want to get out of here, And I would start walking up the 8 highway and on a sick one, and I wind up at the rest stop, and I'm like, fuck, I probably have 270 miles to go. Now my high's gone, and then I'm like walking back all pissed off, and okay, didn't happen, didn't work. How? Just trapped. Yeah. Just so trapped, like trying to do things to get out of there, and just like I said, like hell, like Vegas. I'm just trying to get out of here. I just want to get out of here, and I'm willing to walk. I'm willing to walk through Alpine just to get back to LA, 277 miles, and it's just not happening. And finally it did,
So you walked it?
No, I wish I would have walked it just to say that I could, but no, I didn't walk it. I got a free ride from my probation officer, who dropped me off in Santa Monica. So
that's kind of him.
Yeah, right. And her. Yeah, it was kind of her to for them to take me to Santa Monica and drop me off at a treatment center in Santa Monica. And grateful though. Yeah. Super grateful. And I can remember getting out of the van, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Me and this girl who I came from El Centro with, and we look down, and we see a baggie on the ground, and I'm like, man, are you kidding me? Like, I've been dying to get here, and at that moment I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at her, and I'm
interesting.
Yeah, and I'm looking at her like, and I'm just no, right. It's not gonna happen. And that was my first victory. Yeah, it was my first victory, because it was just like, man, here I am finally here, and I had 1 or 2 decisions right there. Do I really want a new life? Right. Do I really want it? You know, I have a baggie on the ground, and I have a new life waiting for me right across the street.
You were at a crossroad.
Oh, that was at a total crossroad, and obviously
turned right.
I did the right thing for the first time in a long time. I finally did the right thing, you know, as hard as it was, did the right thing, you know, did treatment, did 9 months of treatment, and, you know, 3 months in Santa Monica, 6 months in Long Beach, you know, but I had to do things differently than when I did it the first time in Indio, and I slept with that book. I slept with that book. I slept with that I slept with anything to hammer in the sobriety. I talked to people. I went to meetings.
Working the steps.
Trusting the program. You know, I didn't want to be the popular kid anymore. I wanted to be the sober kid.
Yeah.
You know, things, you know, my felonies, the nursing boards found out, even though I didn't get them while working at the HMO that I was working at. I started doing what probation told me to do, you know. Started calling them when I was supposed to. You know, my probation officer wound up helping me getting my records expunged. So my records are expunged, and this year in October, I'm able to hopefully regain my license.
Right on.
Yeah, thank you. And, you know, that journey of, you know, to where it started to where I am, all I had to do was listen to somebody else but myself.
Love that. What advice would you give to somebody who's struggling right now and is at that crossroad that you were at?
We all know that, I don't want to say we all know, because it took me a minute to know, to really, really know that if I were to pick up that baggie, that things are going to be different this time. But then to get to that point where if I pick up that baggie, it's not going to be different. Mm-hmm. It's going to be the same thing, but even worse. But what if I do different?
Mm-hmm.
What if I try something different today? Just this one time. And if I don't like this different, I know where that baggie's going to be. You know? If I had walked in those doors in Santa Monica and it was just like, no, I know what's waiting out there. I know exactly where that baggie is. You know? And I know what that's going to do. But what if I tried something different and walked through those doors and you know, actually allowed other people to help me when I feel so hopeless, you know, because all that baggie represents is hopelessness and despair and depression and anxiety and you know, manipulation and lies, you know. Mm-hmm. They should call it the baggie of lies, because, you know, that's all it did. That's all it did. It lied to me. It said everything was going to be better. With this hit, life is going to be better. With this hit, you're going to have more friends. With this, you know, you're not going to feel as depressed. But what if I started looking up? Right. What if I started looking up and started looking people in the eyes instead of looking down? What if I looked into somebody's eyes who said, I can help you? You know, what if I took that chance?
Love that. And to end it off, what would you say to your parents right now if they're standing in front of you?
I would tell them, thank you for protecting me through all this. You know, thank you for allowing me to see them as, and not a loss, but more as a gift that I got to have them for as long as I did. That, you know, for my dad, that I'm living the life that he probably always wanted to live, and for showing me and guiding me to get to this point, you know, for allowing me to have the relationship that I do now with my grandma, for, you know, for showing me the love that they showed me when they were here.
Love that. Thank you so much for your time, Sasha.
Thank you.
You're an inspiration to all of us.
Thank you. I appreciate it, and thank you for everyone whoever watches this, and I hope they choose that door rather than that bagging.
Right on.